Welcome to day 3 of the CentreCourt MBA Festival, and we hope for many of you, welcome back from all of the panels, interviews, fireside chats that we enjoyed last week. Day 3 begins again with another very full schedule, both from the admissions perspective. Through the rest of the day, we'll be welcoming the gatekeepers from Harvard Business School, from Kellogg, from Columbia, from Chicago Booth, Carnegie Mellon, Tepper, the list goes on and on and on. And then similarly, of course, we have careers panels to look at the sort of career opportunities that the MBA graduates of these world's top business schools enjoy. For any of you that are joining, of course, on the Zoom platform and using Hoover, you'll be able to address your questions to our panelists through the next hour and through the rest of the afternoon, evening, depending on where you are in the world. I think we have attendees from over 80 countries that are joining us. And of course, all of these recordings are available. So anything that you missed last week, whether from INSEAD, the London Business School, Stanford GSB, Wharton, MIT Sloan, you can find all of those on the Poets and Quants YouTube and Facebook channels. My name is Matt Simmons, and I write about business education for Forbes and formerly The Economist and Business Week. I'm also one of the co-directors of Fortuna Admissions, working with applicants to business schools. I'll be joined in an hour by my business partner for CentreCourt, John Byrne, the editor-in-chief of Poets and Quants. We'll be talking a little bit about the future of business education, obviously, as we navigate this COVID crisis. And that provides a context for the first panel as we look at the career opportunities in the job market of 2020. And I'm delighted to welcome another wonderfully international audience from the UK, Margaret O'Neill, the head of MBA careers at the University of Cambridge's Judge Business School. From Mexico, we have Jamie Martinez Bones, who is the director of the EGADE Business School with Tec de Monterrey. From Austin, and I hope, Daniel, you brought some of that wonderful Amy's ice cream with us. Daniel Yu is the director of the full-time MBA career management at McCombs, and Tammy Samuels, the executive director of career and leadership at UNC Keenan Flagler. So thank you to all 4 of you for joining us and starting another very exciting and full day. These careers panels have been just as popular as anything that your colleagues in the admissions have to say. And I think in many ways, I see you as the sort of the hidden gem, the quiet stars of the business school, with the sort of journey that you accompany MBA graduates on as they go through a transformational year or 2 years and next steps. We talked about, we'd take perhaps a little bit of a temperature check of the job market of 2020. And perhaps, Jamie, we can start with you and what you're seeing at EGADE and in the Mexican market.
Absolutely. Well, our slogan at EGADE is to empower omni-entrepreneurial leaders who generate shared value and transform society. So in that sense, the changes and the challenges that we're seeing right now are playing to our strengths. We are Latin America's #1 ranked business school, and a great deal of that is due to our focus and the emphasis that we place on innovation, digital disruption, intra and entrepreneurship. So companies right now that are valuing that extremely well are recruiting, in fact, more numbers of our students than before, particularly in sectors such as fast-moving consumer goods, farm and healthcare, financial services, and different positions across industries that involve, again, digital transformation and e-commerce. So while the process in some industries is just becoming a little slower, on the contrary, in companies that are investing in the digital transformation, we're seeing great demand for our students because, again, these companies had been putting off transformation processes or carrying them out more slowly, and that's becoming much more accelerated now, and they need the talent that our school is providing.
Right, so there's a sense that those companies perhaps that have been putting off that transformation, there's actually playing their hand, and they really need to look at radical change within the organization.
Absolutely, we're expecting that to increase, so much so that there might be much more demand for that kind of profiles right now than ever before.
Right, later in the day, viewers will be able to enjoy an interview that I recorded with one of your graduates, who is the president of FedEx in Mexico, and Jorge Luis despite having 4 kids at home, of course, there's never been busier, FedEx and the entire delivery industry. So I guess the crisis is having a different impact. Tammy, from your perspective at UNC Keenan Flagler, you have many core strengths at the business school, finance, real estate, the list is a very long one. So what are you seeing for this year's job market?
So, I mean, as you've all indicated, or as we all know, it is undoubtedly a challenging market for all of us during this unprecedented time. That is without a doubt. And so one thing I will say is that we're all leaning into agility and flexibility at this time with compassion for all of our students, particularly for those that had an internship offer that may have been rescinded, understanding that this is an unprecedented period in all of our lives. We haven't necessarily seen a large spike in those rescinded offers, but for those that have, we've worked very closely with them, including leveraging our alumni network for our students in order to secure a new opportunity. And so our students are therefore learning to lean into agility and flexibility as well in terms of the job market. And I think that that makes them much more resilient in the workforce. And that is certainly an attribute that many of our employers are looking for, particularly given this period of time. In terms of the job market at large, I would say that at this current time, we're seeing a number of employers, particularly in consulting, healthcare, and even technology, that are still seeking to fill their pipelines. As you know, or for many of you that have explored Keenan Flagler, we do have a number of options for students to pursue, whether it's real estate, energy, technology, entrepreneurship and consulting, right? However, one of the things that I think that this job market proves is how well can you pivot and lean into new opportunities. And certainly a number of our first year students are learning that, as well as our graduating second year students as well. And that's what the beauty of pursuing an MBA is all about, is really leveraging your career and pivoting to explore new opportunities to accelerate your career path. And so we're basically preparing our students to be able to do just that, given the fluidity of the current job market.
Right. I'd love later on in the panel to come back to that point of applying to business school, where many of the applications will ask, where do you see yourself 2-3 years from now, and speaking to the sort of flexibility and agility that you're describing, Tammy, of where their careers might take them next. Now, Margaret, it might be that in that biotech ecosystem in and around Cambridge, we'll be coming up with vaccines and healthcare solutions for this virus. What are you seeing in and around Cambridge and the European market?
Yeah, I mean, as Jamie and Tammy have said, there are super challenges, but there's also super opportunities, and disruption also always offers opportunity. And Cambridge is at the heart of Silicon Fen and a centre of innovation and inspiration. Loads of activities around COVID-19 about both vaccines are challenging some of the issues that's arisen. There was a huge hackathon at the weekend where people came from all around Cambridge to tackle issues related to it. So there are all kinds of opportunities that arise, as well as challenges. So the truth is that some of the more traditional companies are probably holding off, slowing down a little. We haven't had huge numbers of rescinded offers, but certainly processes might have slowed down or just frozen for now while people are taking a look and see approach. But I really think, an MBA, there's no better place to be to really use those skills of innovation and agility to really add value for companies to be where they're at. You are the change leaders in the world. You're the ones that are going to be going out and challenging this. And actually, I'm because I knew I was on this afternoon, there was a quote from one of our current students, which I'm going to quote because I loved it. And she said, graduating in the middle of a once-in-a-century pandemic leaves us with uncertainty and questions our long-term plans and goals, all while while prompting us to quickly adapt, perform and show results. I wouldn't graduate business school any other way or any other time, which I thought was strong. Ambiguity and uncertainty gives us a tremendous opportunity to make an impact, to help turn economies around and to think out of the box while taking paths that are less travelled. I mean, be the solution. You are the brightest, youngest minds that are looking at things from a holistic view, pivoting, bringing your past experience to bear, learning from each other. You could be going out to these companies and you could be the solution. So traditional jobs might be, slightly conservative, maybe a bit more conservative about taking a risk with people with a different skill set from what they're used to, but we'll find certainly disruptive technology companies, digital transformation companies, they want to engage, and they want to engage in bright young talent who can really show that they can have an impact and come with solutions. So
I think that Judge MBA graduate has found a great soundbite when we share this panel.
I know.
On YouTube.
I'll put you in touch with her later.
An inspiring message. It really is. Yes. No,
I know. I read it this morning. I thought, thank you, Melanie. Yeah.
She has a keen sense of timing as well. Daniel, every time I get back to Austin, whether for South by Southwest, Apple has moved into town to join Dell and other big tech firms. You seem to have welcomed another 30, 40,000 people for a very dynamic market. How are things in Austin and that broader southern market?
Certainly, and before I jump into that, Margaret, I think the sentiments from your student echo something that is so powerful, right? Something that we've seen a shift in, and something that we bring into our orientation is this Japanese concept of ikigai, and it's your reason for being, right? And iki specifically meaning to live, and gai meaning meaning and purpose. And we've found that is never more valuable than today, right? Where what the world really needs, right, is grit. They need leadership. They need resilience. And so I think those components and how that frames even the career journey for an MBA student is more valuable than ever. Specifically in Austin, we've certainly seen one of the strongest hiring markets to date, fueled certainly by all the technology companies that you just mentioned, Apple, Google, building in another brand new building up downtown. We sort of have two headquarter locations now in Austin, with Facebook, Amazon also increasing their presence. And if you, again, think about some of these companies, the only constant for them is digital transformation. And that digital transformation we've seen as a trend tied to also diversity, belonging, and inclusion, as well as a need for earlier talent acquisition and more unique or just-in-time direct-to-hire acquisition markets. And so a lot of what we've done at Texas McCombs is help our students understand how to assess the market. I think that's really part of our secret sauce is our students are learning the skill set to assess the market, both for yesterday, today, and also for tomorrow. And that's going to help them be successful, not just through this current situation and time, but also for what the future is going to bring.
Right. So starting to emerge, those qualities of grit, agility, but perhaps also an international mindset. Jamie, you had talked about entrepreneurship and innovation at the heart of the EGADE Business School experience. Do you feel, I suppose as we step back, if we go back to 2002 and the bursting of the dot-com bubble, then of course 8 years later Lehman goes bust and we're into a financial crisis. The COVID feels unlike either of those two, but it presents the sort of challenges and the opportunities that you've all been speaking to. How does that then sort of factor through in terms of mindset? Not just for local markets where you all have such strong presence, but also then your graduates as they pursue the following years of their career, quite possibly very internationally.
Exactly. Well, we perceive that as a business school, it's not just about preparing students right now, but accompanying your alumni network and updating them and being a relevant player in their lives as they have to also pivot, as some of the colleagues have mentioned, and embark on these very challenging processes at the companies where they might already be working, or they might want to change from different industries from one to the other. And again, as you said, Matt, they have to be entrepreneurial and creative about it. So we've invested a lot as a school in offering different venues for this constant update for our 20,000 strong alumni network. We work with that, we prepare that network, and we also help out with the broader alumni network of the Tecnológico de Monterrey University system. We've got 30 campi throughout Mexico. We have over 1 million alumni throughout the world on 5 continents. So we're working directly with our alumni and with the broader alumni community of Tecnológico de Monterrey. And we're seeing the opportunity in offering what we call alternative EGADE, which are video capsules and stackable courses and short executive programs, and what we call Update Week, which is an annual 2 or 3 day long event, despite being called a week, but it's 2 or 3 intensive days. And we gather our alumni from around the world and update them and help them with whatever challenges they might be facing in terms of again, leading transformation processes with their employers, or reinventing themselves, which is also either a structural need or sometimes a personal choice. You know, I've been at this for 8, 10, 12 years, and I now want to switch to something else and see how I can reposition my competencies in a completely new environment. So we're seeing a great need for that, and trying to develop contents accordingly, both live and virtual. So I don't know if this addresses your question.
It does. I'm just thinking of 1 million alumni within the wider organization. I'd, of course, love to have Michael Jordan among the alumni which UNC can boast. Tammy, you had spoken about the alumni, and it seems that they're not even waiting. You know, some are reaching out to the school and saying, you know, I remember how it was for me back in 2009, and, you know, proactively, how can I help? So what are some of the different support networks and mechanisms that you can then provide to help your graduating students through a challenging market?
Sure thing. Certainly the alumni is a very vast network for our students to tap into. We've even utilized our dean to help get the alumni engaged in all of the efforts of the career services space, and also outreach to our parents and friends of Keenan Flagler as well. So really trying to leverage that arm of our network that we have in order to best serve our students, and even our perspective as well. And so that's been definitely one avenue that we've pursued. Additionally, I would say that we've also worked really closely with our current students. So all of our clubs, including our Carolina Women in Business, have done a number of virtual webinars and outreach to our students to help them best understand what the experience is like in terms of the Keenan Flagler MBA and the community, the sense of community. I would say that in addition, we've also had a course, COVID-19, that a number of students have had real world case experience in terms of navigating creative problem solving and innovation, real life experience. And we're living and breathing this pandemic right now. And so giving our students that opportunity to really navigate those skills, utilize the network that we have. There's a lot of power in being able to leverage your network. And so we're showing our students exactly how we deploy that given the crisis, and how do we utilize our thought leadership and creative problem solving at its best. And so we're utilizing every possible network. Not only our students and staff, the faculty are really utilizing their vast network to help our students, and that's what it's about. Right. And so that's exactly what we're doing. We're showing our students, we're leading by example.
Margaret, it's nice to have a university that's over 800 years old and has global brand recognition. I suppose if we take a slightly wider lens, because in the case of a top UK business school like yours, the British government is making all of the noises and signs that visas for highly skilled professionals, much as like your MBA graduates, will become both easier and provide at least, I think, 2 years to stay. So how do you then support them both for those immediate plans, but of course this other reality with a very mobile group, when they then look to transfer and take the next steps of their career internationally?
Yes, so over 90% of our class are international students, so it's an incredibly diverse international body from all over the world. About half of them generally choose to remain in the UK afterwards, and about 35 to 40% choose to go home. So we have careers advisors based, one in Singapore, one in China, one in the States, one in Latin America, based out of the Caribbean, who are based in that community and can offer insights and advice and guidance and networking opportunities there as well. Our alumni body are astonishing, as Tammy and Jamie have said. We have been bowled over by the support that they offer all over the world. And one of the advantages actually of this disruption is that we can include them in things that we wouldn't have been able to include them in the past. So we've run all kinds of alumni panels, sectoral, geographical background, whatever. And we've been able to pull in people from all over the world. So I was at an alumni panel last week. One guy was there at 1 o'clock in the morning, dialing in. The other guy was in the UK. Again, another one last night. There's 3 more this week. So the alumni are helping in all kinds of ways, both in the projects and in advisory and all the rest of it. So they're a huge resource for us going forward. And we know, our aim as a careers centre is to help our students develop the career management toolkit they're going to pull on the rest of their working lives. This is not unusual anymore. Change is the new normal. They're going to be disrupted over and over and over again, and they need to have the skill set that will allow them to manage themselves, manage their personal organisational, personal management, understand their skills, their interests, their motivations, understand where they fit, understand how to build those relationships across teams and across barriers. Recruiters are saying they want those T-shaped people. They want that specialism, but they want them to be able to work across teams as well. And because Cambridge is such an experiential based 1-year program, it's incredibly intense, but there are 4 projects over that time where they have to actually apply their learning in real time with a client host, actively putting their learning into practice. And that really helps cement that learning and helps them build that network for the future, and helps them build some examples of how they're going to show up in this company in the future. And what was interesting is the global consulting projects that have just taken place were supposed to be taking place throughout the world. They're all over the world, and suddenly they have to do them virtually. They have been amazingly successful. And I think there's a real advantage there in saying, from a standing start, working with 5 team members that have been based all over the world, one in India, one in Japan, one in China, one in the States, one in the UK, we've managed to deliver something of value to a real client who has given us a problem to deal with, and we've done it. This is evidence-based that we can take forward. So it's about helping them build those stories and conveying them effectively. So they spot opportunities, they build their stories, they know who they are and the value they bring. And those are the transferable skills I think they're going to need to pull on the rest of their working life as they navigate uncertainty over and over and over again. This is not going to go away. And so you need to be really comfortable with not knowing what's going to happen next, and be excited by it, and be confident that you've got the resources and the base core skills that you can navigate that comfortably.
So we look at this sort of global scope of where careers are taking them. Daniel, I interviewed for CentreCourt, a McCombs graduate from 2015 or 16, who's now in a senior position at Starbucks in Hong Kong, and a career that took her via Seattle. And she says, all of that sort of international multicultural leadership that she learned through a project in West Africa, an exchange program with LBS. I suppose 2 questions for you, Daniel. How do you keep track of these graduates all over the world? And just that enduring value, because in Nicole's case, she continues to draw on skill sets that she developed 5-6 years ago in your career. So again, you're trying to prepare them for career building over 5, 10, 20 years, right?
Absolutely. So that's part 1 of your question, right? I think there's something really special about the size of the Texas McCombs full-time MBA class. It's about 260 to 280 students, and that really allows the entire program office staff to build strong relationships with students. And so with Nicole, the relationship is there. How she's given back over time, she's a constant presence in helping her fellow new Longhorns navigate the Starbucks process. And then certainly as she took that global role, we were all very excited for her and rooting for her. And again, the insights that she's been able to bring back to our new class of fresh MBAs, again, that's a virtuous cycle that continues. So I think that relationship value is certainly a part of it. There's also something about you mentioned experiential learning. Margaret, you touched on that as well. I think at Texas McCombs, one of the mottos that we have is human-centered, future-focused. And kind of along with that in our new Rolling Hall building is this sense of overlapping communities and the ability to tinker. Right? The city of Austin is a very entrepreneurial city where it's very easy to build fast relationships. I can't tell you the number of new relationships that have been built through conferences like South by Southwest, and our students have that in their backyard. And so as a result of, I think, that type of ecosystem, it creates a certain mindset for our students on how they build relationships both for now and for the future, how new ventures come out of the 40 acres. In general, I don't know if that helps answer some of your question. I mean, we spend a lot of time and investment, especially on my team, tracking and keeping in touch with both our current students and our alumni, especially during this virtual time. And in fact, I think this is a time of opportunity, right? More now than ever do we have permission to check in with our population. And so across the 500,000 Longhorns, almost 100,000 McCombs alumni, and the 22,000 plus MBAs, I feel like the world seems a little bit smaller and perhaps a little bit busier as well.
Right. But I mean, it's something that all four of you articulate very well, and is a clear message from the alumni, from the student that you quoted earlier, Margaret, of just why you're better off with an MBA from one of the world's top business schools than without. This tough market, I think, is demonstration. Now, I actually look at the career services. I think it's the hidden gem within the business schools. We obviously have a lot of interaction with admissions. How do we get into such selective schools? We might, sort of hold up a famous strategy professor, but it's you in careers that are accompanying these students on their transformational journey to then, pursue those next stages of their life. So, Jamie, starting with you, just I guess the basic question. Working with the admissions office, does the careers office then, do they discuss applicant profiles and those early pre-MBA goals that they shared in the application as they apply to EGADE?
I'm sorry, I was on mute. To the degree that we're working intensely with each one of our students on a one-on-one basis, and we track the employment performance of each, and even entrepreneurial performance of our graduates, when they graduate at the 1, 3, and 5 year mark, we're gathering data that we then feed into the admissions process. Although, of course, we also keep in mind that business school is a great platform for personal transformation. So you might come in even with a very clear plan of what you want to do in the following years, and given the information and opportunities and new vistas that open in front of you when you're in business school, you might want to change your plans completely. So, I mean, we understand that there's some change and flexibility while you're in business school. Now, we're also leveraging information from not just the companies throughout the world, in Latin America in particular, that come to us to recruit our students, but also that both the business school and Tec de Monterrey University has corporate boards of advisors throughout our 30 camping throughout all of our graduate schools. So these are business leaders in all kinds of industries and worldwide that we're continually in conversation with, and taking information from them and the profiles and abilities and competencies they're looking for. And we use that again to plan out both the admissions and recruitment process and the whole curriculum and design and follow-up that we give to our students. And as I mentioned before, alternative EGADE and the follow-up that we continually give to all of our alumni community. Now, another source of information that we're really using right now is that overall Tec de Monterrey, the university, amongst its alumni network, has created a number of companies. It's a very entrepreneurial community that has generated almost 3 million jobs in Mexico. So we're talking about many very large and very successful companies that we're also in constant contact with, and tapping into their needs and using that also as part of our feedback process in terms of what we're doing. But I would like to stress that even though you have all this data and all these conversations with all these audiences and corporate recruiters and the entrepreneurial scene out there, it all comes down to one-on-one advisory of each one of our students, and really understanding what his or her project is like. And that could be, doing a social enterprise, joining a large transnational company at any one of the 5 continents where we've got alumni right now, or going to a government service or the social sector. So again, we're seeing great versatility in the careers and projects of each one of our students, but we're only as good as our ability to use all that data and bring it down to this personal advisory that we take very seriously.
Right. And Tammy, I'm sort of similar. You have countless stories of somebody coming into business school with one sort of perhaps career plan, and then they spend 2 incredible years with such a diverse, talented, open-minded, ambitious bunch of classmates, and they head off doing something completely different. So do you discuss applicant profiles with admissions? And if so, what sort of advice or input are you then giving?
Our office works really closely with our admissions office. In fact, much like the panel that we're doing now, we're doing a number of career conversations with our prospective students coming in so that we can speak candidly to their questions and apprehensions about pursuing an MBA at this time. And so we're doing a lot of that. In fact, building a lot of Q&A around the job market and the careers curriculum that we provide. So we work really closely with our admissions office in that regard. We also talk about the profile of the incoming class in terms of what are the employability skills and attributes that we're looking for. I think well beyond the scores in terms of GMAT and GRE, we're looking at the holistic profile of those students in terms of what they can bring in terms of their experience and background. We're also looking at the soft skills, right? And so technical skills obviously matter, the quant and analytical skills, but certainly the additional soft skills that they have demonstrated in their work experience is key. And so we discuss all of that with our admissions staff. It's important that students coming into the program are able to demonstrate their leadership capabilities, and certainly any experience around management and leading teams. That is really, really vital to us and working with our employers. So that would be definitely some of the things that we're doing with our admissions team. I would say even beyond that, looking at the candidate's profile and having an interview, a conversation, how well are they able to demonstrate professional presence in an interview and their communication skills, the confidence and the ability to talk about themselves, their experience, their ability to navigate failure, and how do you communicate and involve working with a team in terms of inclusion and diversity and humility. And so those are things that we'll be looking for in the interview process. So certainly it's well beyond what the candidate can demonstrate on paper, but communication, both oral and written, are attributes that we're looking for as well. I'm just trying to think if there was a part 2 to your question, if I missed it or not.
Not yet, but I'm sure we'll find one in a moment. I'd love to talk about then, from that initial assessment, how you accompany them through the different coaching, those soft skills that you then look at, that you already identify in the individual that you're looking to amplify, I guess, through their experience. But I'll just turn to Margaret, because of course at Judge, you're trying to do all of that in 1 year. Much like Tammy, do you already start to engage with the incoming class before they show up for the first day of class?
Absolutely. So I'm actually head of MBA marketing, admissions and careers, so I'm intimately involved in it. So I have oversight of the whole process, and that's quite an unusual role. But we've got we've got a tight, intimate class of about 200 students, and the need to hit the ground running is really important in a 1 year intense program. So we work really closely with the careers team. We talk to them about the kind of questions that they want to hear. We talk to them about what recruiters are asking for, and we try and feed that back in. Just as Tammy was talking about, that's really that, how you learn from failure, how you give and receive feedback constructively, how you work in a team, how your behaviour might have changed as a result of not just what your learning is, but how you've changed as a result. And we look at that quite in a quite nuanced way. And we've got members of the careers team who are on our reading panel, and I also obviously sit on the admissions committee meeting. So we look very holistically, and it's not just about I know what I want to do, I'm going to target. Sometimes people don't really know what they want to do, but they know what they want to get out of the MBA, and they're hoping that the MBA will give them a pathway, and there's a focus on something. It might be a focus on developing my skill set, trying to build on my previous experience. There's something that we can hold on to. And so we share that with the careers team, and they do a lot of work before they start. So we even from before now, on the pre-arrival, we get them to think about their skills, their interests, their motivations, start thinking about that transferable skill set. We get them to do short pitches on interview streams so that they can see how well they convey their personal presence and impact. There'll always be one-to-one and career coaching sessions, both before they come virtually. So even before this happened, we used to have kind of surgeries before they come, so they can ask those questions, and we can talk to them about the kind of things they need to do now to prepare to be ready for when they start. And I would always say, there's that old adage: if you don't know yourself, you've got no chance of learning anything else. Really work with yourself first, because if you need to hold your own compass, because when you arrive, you're assailed with opportunity of, joining this, doing that. Cambridge is awash with opportunities, not only at Judge Business School, but in their college and the university, and you have to have something to hold on to. So we work a lot with them on really owning themselves, so they don't follow I always call it the herd of wildebeests going into consulting. The cloud coming at you. They all want to be consultants because their best friend does, but if you don't absolutely love, if you're dragging yourself through the nose through case studies, don't do it. So it's really trying to convey that before they come, talk to them really realistically about the skills that are required for different areas and different avenues, and help them understand where they can add value and what their best self is. So it's bringing them to the best version of themselves, so they can, and then helping them portray that as effectively as they can. And the difference, everyone will say the same, the difference between when they come and now, April, May, June now, is massive. It's such a different thing. That when they arrive, which is when often lots of the big employment opportunities come up, they are as they were. The MBA hasn't had a chance to play out yet. So we have to tell them that, so they can be kind to themselves when things don't work out the way they expect within those first few months. And by Christmas they think, I'm never going to work again. Oh my God, I'm a failure. Because that's when we have to work, as Jamie has said, about really talking one-to-one with them about what their differentiating strengths are and how they can be the best version of them and not a poor version of someone else.
Daniel, you spoke about the tech giants, obviously, that are all based in and around Austin, renewable energy. Are there any cases where you might step in and look at the sort of career transition that someone's sharing with the admissions office and say, what, that might be a challenge, but we could still work with this individual? So you're actually sort of sounding an alarm bell. And perhaps just following on from that, we're not cautioning that the applicant should say what you all want to hear. Oh yeah, there's Facebook, there's Google, there's Apple in town, so let's tell the admissions office that's where again, it picks up on what we said about finding your own personal path based on skill sets that you have and how you'll help them on that journey, right?
Absolutely. So I'll kind of start with advice and actually talk more about our partnership with our admissions team. I think the advice that I share with our prospective applicants who are joining this call and watching the recording later is, you really need to do your research, right? And think about not just what you are good at, but really where your strengths are, right? Because your strengths are what will keep you energized through any pandemic or crisis situation, right? Your strengths are what define your unique value proposition. And that's something that we work closely with every student on as they come through this program, right? There is transformation. And some of that transformation requires you to have a sense of what the world needs. Right, what the world needs right now today is very different from what it needed even a month ago, right, 2 months ago. And so I think the advice is come in with some focus, right? Do some research, come in with focus. It's a hypothesis, right? It doesn't have to be the final output, the final thing. And we've seen success come both from the students who come in with very clear ideas and targets of what they want to do, consulting, investment banking. But as well as, I think you mentioned clean tech, with renewable energies, we've seen incredible growth and interest in that space. And even just being able to do the research of what are the resources at Texas McCombs, like Clean Tech Fellows or Healthcare Innovation Fellows, that you might leverage while you are a student here to help you build that overall portfolio brand and help you enhance and, again, kind of work out those muscles of the things that are going to make you the most competitive candidate for your next career move. To go back on the admissions piece, we work closely as well as our peer schools here with our admissions team. And at a macro level, we meet quarterly to discuss the market insights that our team is gathering and hearing from both alumni as well as our strategic corporate partners. And so for some examples, sitting down with BCG as they were opening their Austin office this fall, speaking with Deloitte about the shift and how important is a technical sort of competency or literacy for a incoming strategy consultant. And the truth is, big data is now something that is ubiquitous. Everyone needs to have a sense of competency around this digital world that we live in, right? Even now more so than ever. And then of course, partners like even at a local regional level, HEB, one of these American supermarkets, a privately owned supermarket chain with over 350 stores, watching their digital transformation and partnering with them and thinking about what are the talent needs that they have across not just our full-time MBA program, but across our portfolio of MBA programs, working professional MBAs, as well as our executive program. It's been incredible to watch even some of our homegrown businesses essentially accelerate their growth. And we're trying to keep pace with what are some of the skill sets, both technical and soft, that we can feed into our admissions team so that they can help understand what are the kinds of students that we can help, again, continue to grow both our local, regional, and also the national ecosystem that we have. One thing I'll also note is, we've recently hosted some international webinars to help with some of that focus. Right? So we hosted a session around product management. It's become such a hot field at Texas McCombs. And we're actually seeing almost more career enhancers as well as switchers moving into product management. And so just because you're an engineer doesn't make you a great product manager automatically. Right? And just because you're not an engineer doesn't mean you can't be a product manager. But really understanding those nuances is something that my team of career consultants, and we also have a team of industry career consultants specializing and actually working in these spaces that I think provide guidance for both prospective students as well as students once they are enrolled.
Right, because I think with the quasi-obsession that some have with rankings, and they have certain data points, but they really don't shed any light on how you help to share those outcomes and this personal journey that people are going on. I'm going to ask all four of you, this is just off of perhaps a favorite story of the arriving student and where the MBA experience took them, and perhaps even just then a thought of how you helped them to get there. So of course, whoever I ask first, the other three have the time to think about you must have so many wonderful stories coming out of the schools. Jamie, can I start with you out of those 20,000 alum at EGADE?
Absolutely. Again, playing on how important that one-on-one contact with each student is. For example, in Mexico City, I personally speak to nearly every one of the incoming students, either even before classes start or after they start. And I sort of compliment the work that our incredible coaches at the Career Services team are doing in getting to know each one of our students and in seeing, whether they want to accelerate or deepen their project or change to something completely else, and just share advice. And to the degree that we've got professors, over 300 professors from all walks of life and all kinds of areas of expertise, we can really connect each one of our students to a professor who might serve as a mentor for him or for her. So we've got some really interesting stories about students coming from a family company, their family company, that might be into agriculture or a small agri-industrial company, and the student is thinking of doing something completely different. And by the time he's graduating, he's in fact even convinced of going back to the family company and leading this complete transformation and having a crowd investing platform for future crops of high value add crops that are being produced at the family, at the family company, and doing actually great. Or we had the case of another student who came in very committed to doing a career in IT. And after all these conversations and classes and being exposed to so many different players and audiences that we're connected with, she ended up creating a nonprofit, a very successful nonprofit that teaches coding and tech skills to adolescent and adult women in Mexico. And she's doing great and won a bunch of prizes so far. So part of what makes business school so incredible, both for the students and for those of us that are there as faculty and administrators, is that so much potential is detonated, so many new life and career paths are opened up. And we're full of anecdotes in that sense of really opening up people's imaginations and considering alternatives and career paths that before it might have never crossed your mind, right? So Daniel said something about having a hypothesis when you're applying, and that's very true. Of course, we're looking for your ability to define credible but exciting short and long-term goals, but we're fully aware that with so much stuff going on in this business school and the university context of any of the universities here, but also Tecnológico de Monterrey, because of its size and so much activity, incredible things happen and very incredible opportunities come up. So we definitely think that that's part of the rethinking and the reimagining that goes on in business school, and that to a certain extent we're also helping companies do, reimagine themselves, reimagine their industries, their processes, and that's more important now than ever.
Right. Tammy, I'm sure for your team helping individuals to unlock their potential, as Jamie does, it must be an incredibly rewarding part of what you do. Any favorite stories, or but just the sense of holding up a mirror and helping somebody, nudging them in a new direction that worked out?
Well, first, I just want to echo your sentiment about it being a very rewarding experience working with the students, either individually or collectively. Essentially, that's what we're here for, is to help these students land as they complete their MBA degree. And so it's extremely rewarding to work with these students. The office does a number of different things to work with our students around career. To start, so before getting into a success story, I'll just sort of share more broadly some of the work that we're doing. And so to start, we work very closely with admissions and the onboarding experience. So we partner with our full-time program director to complement the analytical skills workshop that's offered over the summer. And so parallel to that, we have a very robust career curriculum, which centers around a three-pronged approach: know yourself, know the market, and market yourself. And so we basically make sure that the students establish a solid foundation when it comes to the career development skills. As we all know, career development is a lifelong journey. And so we want to make sure that we equip them and arm them with the foundational skills that they need around navigating careers and the respective industries that they may want to pursue. Additionally, we partner with our employer engagement and recruiting team so that students best understand what the market looks like. We will also encourage these students to participate in a number of corporate panels so that they can hear firsthand from our strategic business partners as well. So in that respect, we're working with students from the very onset of their MBA experience, prior to even orientation programming. So there's a lot of work done there. Additionally, our career coaches work with the students individually. So every student has an individual appointment. So it's a customized, personalized approach to the career coaching experience. So we can hear firsthand what they might know about themselves, what their strengths are, what are the areas that they're looking to improve, industries that they're looking to explore and get to know further. So that individual experience is really valuable to all of our students. In terms of a success story, there's many to share. I will say that one in particular that sticks out for me is a student who was really struggling with their career search, had a number of opportunities that they pursued prior to the pandemic. And after a number of interviews, they finally landed their internship, was very excited, had had 3 offers, and we were very excited for this individual. Subsequently, pandemic hit, and the individual lost out on that internship that he was very excited about. Nonetheless, we all sort of rolled up our sleeves and encouraged the student to remain positive and resilient. Daniel, you spoke a little bit about the grit that's required regardless of any pandemic, right? And so we all worked together in terms of getting this student the resources that he needed. I personally had a coaching experience with the student as well to talk about navigating the search given this climate. Fortunately, the student was able to turn things around and ended up as a finalist with 2 subsequent employer offers, which we were thrilled to see. It had been a difficult journey initially, and this pandemic certainly did not help. But nonetheless, we all worked together with the coaches and the employer engagement team, the faculty, and even our alumni network to try to best identify a new opportunity for this individual student. And nonetheless, landed just last Friday, I believe, had 2 offers in hand and accepted one of the 2. So again, that's what it's about, is collaboration and communication with our career services team. But like I said, we start with building a solid foundation with our curriculum at the onset of their onboarding experience.
There must be so many of these personal stories. It's like having your family, right? And wanting the best for them, and how everybody then gathers around to support them. Margaret, do you have a standout story? I think we have you on mute at the moment. There we go.
Trying to unmute myself. Yeah, sorry. Gosh, there are so many, and rather like Tammy, we spend so much time with students. I've been in this business nearly 20 years, so there are a lot, but there's a couple that really spring to mind because I've just been talking to them recently. So one of our alumni from the last crisis, 08, did a really great webinar last night, and he reminded me of so many things, because he said to me, when I first came to Cambridge, I was so sure that I wanted to work in consulting. And he said, I didn't really know enough. And he said, I was absolutely terrible. I carpet bombed every employer there was. The first term, I was awful. And we had to bring him down and say, listen, this is really expending your energy. You need to be a little bit more focused, whatever it come back to us and really talk about what you're trying to achieve with this. Is this something you want to do? You're hating doing case. Why are you dragging yourself through it every day? This is what you're going to be doing every day. Can you revisit? He then actually got a consulting offer. He was a very compelling candidate. He went then, he got the offer. He had no other offer as yet, and he had 2 young children. And he said, and when he went there to sign on everything, he said, I'm not going to do this. This is not right for me. And I'm going to take a risk. And apparently even his wife didn't know. So he had to go home and break it to his wife that, yeah. But he would realise by then what he really wanted to do, and he wanted to work in finance. And then he chose to do his individual project and his research project, really understanding and exploring what the challenges were for a particular, he's looking for hedge funds in a particular sector, and then go to them with solutions. So he then spent the next 4 or 5 months really working on his project, sharing his findings. And by the end of that, he had a fantastic network of people who were advocates for him and were trying to think, what can we do with this guy? How can we use him? He said after that, I never applied online, because if I'd applied online, I would not have gone past HR. I didn't have the 5 to 10 years finance experience they're looking for. I didn't have any of the skill sets that they thought they needed. But by that point, I'd already demonstrated what I could do with my projects, and we spent so much time. He spent a lot of time in careers. He ended up doing some work with us the following summer to build on this. And he's been there at JP Morgan ever since for the last 10 years, growing and developing and giving back as well. I love that story because it's about, you know, owning it, going out there, doing my best friend's job, pulling back and saying, this is not right for me, taking a risk and being confident enough to say, I now know who I am. I didn't at the beginning, I do now, and I'm willing to back myself and to really put that R&D research into it. And I read something really interesting the other day, actually, from another career specialist, John Sullivan, who was talking about treating your career like a company. You've got R&D, ops, and sales and marketing. And in times of stress, people concentrate on the ops. which is all over refining your CV, going over your CV, until you're back into, when really you should be thinking about the R&D, what's feeding into that, and how you're presenting that at the other end, how you're presenting yourself in your sales and marketing, and what R&D have you done. And I thought that was a really nice analogy, and I love a good analogy. So that's our aim with our students, to help them with the R&D. So, and sometimes you have to let them go through the process, because, you have to say, I'm not, tough love, I'm not sure, why do you want to do this? Is this what you really want to do, and all the rest of it? But let them try it, because otherwise you have to find out for yourself these, and you need to know that it's the right thing for you. He also said something really
it also speaks to, and sorry, just because I want to make sure that we bring Daniel in the last few minutes, it also speaks to the power of when an individual goes back to business school, whether it's the full-time MBA, of course, or part-time and executive MBA programs, they're bringing that first experience, and then you're really helping them to explore what that next path might be. So Daniel, of course, everyone else has had a turn. You've got to come up with something blisteringly good now.
Well, I think first off, we're very grateful for the spotlight that Poets and Quants did this past fall. We tied with Wharton as the top MBA career management center globally. And I think it really speaks to my team. I have an incredible team, talented team that is so passionate about not just helping students, but also understanding the marketplace. And again, I go back to that because we are modeling for our students exactly what they need to continuously do throughout their career. Oftentimes when a student who is struggling comes in, we start with a conversation of how are they doing, right? There's that human center piece. But then we gradually shift the conversation to more of the quantitative, how many outreaches have you done? And again, we model that, right? And I'm able to actually sit in front of a student over Zoom or over Microsoft Teams and say, I've spent 5 hours this past week. I've spent 10 hours myself this past week. How many hours have you spent? Let's partner together on how you are doing, whatever aspect, whatever phase of your process you're in. And I think that's so valuable. I think it's helped us build a deep sense of credibility with our students. Something else that we've done, and I share this because I think it's valuable for every student, every prospective, is especially if you're coming in wanting to do product management, you're going to be managing virtual teams. And so your ability right now to become really good at this kind of virtual engagement, even with an in-person MBA program, is going to be so valuable. We launched Microsoft Teams about a year ago, and our team navigated and gradually, naturally gravitated towards that. But then we launched Microsoft Teams for all of our incoming students. And so we put our cohorts and our study teams into these virtual pods and gave them the tools that they're going to be using when they get into the workforce. And I think that kind of experience gets me really excited thinking about how they will be successful this summer, especially for incoming, our first-year students. To kind of wrap up about a personal story, this is the one that speaks most deeply to me. We have a student who came into the program wanting to do entrepreneurship and venture capital. And that is not a traditional MBA career path. And so, usually with that student, you give them the tools, they come into our required class, but they're really engaging in the external resources across campus and in the city of Austin. They came in to help with some, communication language around trying to get a startup that had rejected them. He really wanted to hustle. This was the startup he wanted to work for. So we sat down and we tweaked the communication that he was going to send directly to the CEO. Not something that we normally would recommend every student do, but he had an interesting value proposition coming in as a biotech engineer wanting to work for a healthcare startup. And that email to the CEO actually led to an opportunity. She really valued that grit again, and that boldness. And of course, that could be a success story in and of itself. But of course, it was a startup. He came back from that. He worked for them part-time, and then there wasn't a runway for his particular unit. Tried to figure something out. It didn't work out. So he's back in my office in February of his second year with a baby on the way saying, I need to figure out my life. And, we sat down, we planned. I said, there's this, South by Southwest is coming up. You're interested in these key areas. Let's think broadly about your new strategic career plan. And so I actually helped wingman him at South by Southwest. We attended a BCG Digital Austin happy hour together, and there he met the new head of the Austin office for BCG. And you can see where this story is going, and I'm already getting excited reliving it. This is a student who did not engage in any of our case prep resources as a first-year student, did not go through consulting recruiting as a first year, but incredibly smart, incredibly talented. And when we sat down and created a plan, I said, here's where you are, here's the assessment of where your gaps are. Let's work out how many available hours you have because you want this, right? And so between interviewing prep for product management as well as for this consulting interview, This individual was able to land offers from both companies. And then we were sitting down doing a life matrix, asking the question of, you have a newborn baby boy who is literally came the day after, I think the week after he got that BCG offer, and sitting down with him and talking with his partner even of, how do you balance this, right? What matters? Do you want this local digital product management role, or do you want to join BCG as they're building out the Austin office? And what an incredible story, and it's one that's near and dear to me, and we have to stay in touch again in that sense of that virtuous cycle. He is now one of the key recruiting specialists working in partnership with McCombs for BCG Digital in Austin.
It's very sober analysis of the time that the two of you spent at a happy hour, and I congratulate you for that. Daniel, you mentioned how we're all learning to work in virtual teams, and I have to say what a great team we all just made for the last hour. I think as I go back through the transcript of this discussion, we started with some of those characteristics of grit and agility, and to be able to then illustrate that, I think, at the end of this panel with the sort of experiences that all of your students, this transformation that they go through and how you get them there. And I feel that, giving you a voice to really help applicants to your top schools understand the sort of dedicated work that you do. It's absolutely fascinating to me, and I'm really glad. So, of course, for the audience, that nobody's left. Everybody that registered has stayed, which I think is always the best testament to what insight and engaging content we had. Thank you, all four of you, for such a wonderful, engaging panel.
Thank you so much, Matt.
Thank you, Matt. It's been a wonderful conversation.
Really enjoyed meeting you all as well virtually. Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure to be a part of this panel and to talk with you all.
I think you'll now have a flood of questions in the chat room.
Okay, there we go. Thank you so much. Bye now.
Bye.
Bye.